Episode 20.
20.
I'm going to make up a word. Diennial. Decennial?
Diennial episode 20. Yeah, I like it. Diennial.
Biennial? I don't even know. So this one, which we spoke about, the topic is going to be sex. I was going to cue up Salt and Pepper.
All right, we don't need to date ourselves that
In
hard.
a constant loop.
No.
And I was like, that's not really what we're going for. So I didn't do that. But okay, quickly, because you and I went through it and listen, I'm up at 4:30 in the morning and it is literally guaranteed that I will be up at 4:30 in the morning. And when I am, I take notes.
Thoughts are coming.
I do stuff. And so I was thinking to myself about this one, like we're going to cover whatever. But like I was thinking about like people talk about like the love languages and like I've read that crap. But then like I also not crap, and then I was like, are there sex languages? And then I was like, I'm gonna make up my own. But then there actually are sex languages.
Yeah. But again, you got to take it with a grain of salt. I mean, all that stuff is, how about just talk about the way you feel validated? That's love languages.
Okay. 100% taken with a grain of salt, because obviously this was in an article, but I could add about 17 more to this.
Yeah.
Besides what so quickly, they're like, sensual, which feeds off 5 senses. Energetic, it's the anticipation or the buildup.
Right.
For them. Kink, need we say more? Taboo, not the societal sexual norm. That's right. It's something that's like should be shied away from or said no to.
Which is really funny because that bar has changed too. So
of course it has. I mean, of course it has. Sexual, which is visually focused. Right. So they like social sexual norms. Like that. And then there's also shapeshifters, which can fit into any type.
Any of those.
Right. Any of those. And it's funny they say about shapeshifters, like they can fit into any type and be down with any type, but then they end up feeling emotionally vacant.
Yeah, well, where did you get this information? This is bullshit.
This I got from Body and Soul with April 21st, 2022. But there's also a book that came out not too long ago by like Dr. like Gary Weiss, and he has his 5. And
I'm sure he does.
I'm sure he does as well. But like I said, I could add 17 more to this, right? Like when I was making up my own in my head, I was like, aggressive, selfish, detached, fun and affectionate. And then I was like, ooh, the one that's all in. Like, this is an experience for both of us. Like, let's go on this ride, but like I was thinking about, because there's a lot that you can tell about somebody by how they engage in a sexual encounter.
Absolutely. And a lot of people will say that is often will say that's the truest self. If let's take away the fact, if you are allowing yourself to be vulnerable. So if it's a performance or that's your profession or something, that doesn't count. But if you're being your authentic self, it's often correlated with that, your most authentic self.
It's a real indicator. And like this morning, it was funny because my friend Mary Lou came over briefly in the morning and I was talking to her about this. And I said, how many times over the years have you like spoken to a friend or whatever, and they've been dating someone or maybe just, okay, we got to be wide open here. Dating someone, hooked up with someone, whatever. And they're like, whoa, like how they were in bed is completely different than how they are,
Actually, that's more often the case than not. Yeah.
And so that's what I mean. Like that, like stripping it down to that really tells you a lot about somebody. And sometimes when people do engage in a sexual encounter with someone, it could be a relationship and they finally have sex with each other, or it could just be like a one-time thing, or it could be someone you've known forever as a friend and you decide to engage in something. You might walk away going, oh, holy shit. Or you might walk away going like, I wasn't really
Yeah.
expecting that. Like,
Yeah. I
like,
mean, I to this day, I don't think it surprises me as much anymore because I do a lot of sex therapy with couples.
mhm,
And because it comes back down to communication and stuff. But it still amazes me to this day. And it does, I think, how often when you get in a safe environment and spouses or partners start to talk, how surprised the partner is. And when you get the person to talk about what they really want, and part of me, I just, it makes me sad for them, but I love that they came to me. And so, and then it opens up this whole other world.
other world. Yeah.
Yeah, but how little sometimes couples who have been married for a really long time know about each other sexually.
And, and okay. eh, I'm putting a pin in that, how little they know, because I want to ask you a question. Um, but first I want to say this. And I was also thinking, and this kind of ties into it. I
Sure.
was thinking about like, I coined a new phrase. Well, I don't know if it's new, but I'm gonna take credit for it. I'm calling it the like humanality scale, like personality, but human instead of person. And it's
So
like the
like your
amount,
visceral, your body person, like yeah,
it's like humanality scale in the sense of like your level of humanness or humanity that you have inside of you, which really ties
oh,
into like emotional intelligence, right?
okay.
Like
Hmm.
some people have a low level of humanness in them, which means kind of like a low level of emotional intelligence, right?
Okay.
Some of the very high level that's
Would
been
you
developed
correlate
for,
this new word to being empathic in a way, or
I would say it's almost like you like how like how you ingest humanity and what you give back, right? Like some people
okay,
are empathetic and some people are self-aware. That's what I mean by like emotional IQ, right? Like ties into it. Some
okay,
people are they're empathetic, they're self-aware, they consider others when they're
that's
doing
just
things,
right, and that's a piece of their humanity or human. Okay.
their humanality.
Hmm.
I think this is really going to take off. And then some people's it's low, and that could be because of experiences in their life where they're like, well, man, I've been fucked over so many times and screw everybody, and I don't care anymore. But like when you get someone who's got like a high level and someone who's got a low level,
Okay.
the people with the high level are sometimes like, think to themselves, there's got to be something more to this person, right? Like this can't just be it. Like, don't they
Okay.
must, when they're alone, think about
Oh, yeah,
this and
yeah, yeah.
that.
Okay. Okay.
And
Yeah.
sometimes people just don't, Katie.
Sometimes they don't. Yeah.
Sometimes they really just don't.
Yeah.
And when those two personalities get
Yeah.
together, humanalities, I'm going to
Mhm.
keep using, when those two humanalities get together in a relationship, it's like the one is always kind of trying to drag the other one up, like, come on, man, you got to have more in you. And they
Yeah.
don't. And then the one who's on the lower scale is like, why are we doing this all the time? Can't we just,
Gotcha.
then you
Hmm.
bring sex into it and forget it. I mean,
Hmm.
like, so that was just something I was like
Okay.
forming in my brain. Just from things that I've observed with people, just from things I've observed with people that I've personally been romantically involved with,
Uh-huh.
right? Like
Uh-huh.
we all know the physical element, the chemistry, the sex can be great,
Hmm.
right? And then everything else can
Well, it's
be
mind, body, spirit. I
nuts.
mean, you can jive mind, you can jive body, you can jive spirit, but doesn't necessarily, I mean, the goal is to try to jive with all three. Um, but they don't necessarily all come together. I mean,
Yeah, it's like the perfect like triad if that was to happen. But when you say, let's go back to when you said how little these couples know about each other.
yeah.
Why do you think they know so little about each other? And these are sometimes long-term couples,
Oh, yeah.
married,
Um,
children, blah, blah, blah. Like,
well,
how
see,
have
I
they let
think
it go to
I
that point?
So in the beginning, when you're first getting together, there's not a lot to risk, right? So you're putting yourself out there. And they'll say things like, "Man, when we were first together, we had sex everywhere and it was awesome and you were adventurous and da 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 da," right?
Wild. Woo. Yeah.
Yeah. But the more you invest emotionally, I'm not even talking about outside interferences like children stuff. That's a whole other thing that I work with people on when you just don't have the time or the privacy. But emotional risk starts to come into play, right? So now
Okay.
you've got more. My printer just started printing something.
That's a tad demonic, but
That's
okay.
weird. So,
Is
no,
it anything good? Are you going to share
I know.
it?
Right? And then this position,
Does your printer have something to say?
that's what to say. But so basically, what I attribute it to is more vulnerabilities attached, right? And
Okay.
so, and we know that the idea is, and then if you wait too long to talk about something, doesn't it just compound and compound and compound and compound? Let me give you an example. I had this one couple come to me, and one child,
Mm-hmm.
and he would try to initiate sex, and he'd come up to her and he'd kiss her neck and put his arms around her and maybe squeeze her butt or something, and she'd literally fall to the ground.
Fall to the ground in desire.
Like, don't.
Oh, like in a fetal position. Don't touch
Yeah,
me. I'm a
yeah,
turtle. Like, get
yeah,
away from me.
yeah.
Really?
And
You know,
by
I
the
would love
time,
that.
yep, and by the time he came to me, he was pretty sure he had traumatized his wife and that he was addicted to porn. And I'm like, whoa, 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 whoa. Let's reel it back. Um,
Well, wow, dude, don't be so hard on yourself. Number
yeah,
one, I mean,
yeah. So, but just like any other topic, the issue is sexual dynamics are so scary to talk about because there's a level of vulnerability there that couples, if they don't start addressing things right in the beginning, it becomes so compounded. We already know how difficult it is as if you just have hard subjects to talk about. Say like you don't parent well together. That's a hard thing to come into therapy about. By the time you come because your sexual relationship's totally shot, it's so compounded, you know?
it's so personal,
Yeah.
right? Like,
And
it's
they
so
were
personal
and
to
they
yourself, like to individually personal. Like,
absolutely,
am I failing at this? Like,
especially for the
am I
men that
no
I
good?
work with. Yeah, the men that I work with, it's just, and lots of, beautiful when people really work and they come in and they say, well, and I work with a lot of men that are getting older, so they're having some hard time getting erection. And then that starts with, then the female feels like that she's not turning him on, and then he doesn't want to talk about that. And I have a lot of guys now that, thank God, are coming in and being like, I think I shared this with you. Basically, their hormone levels are dropping and they felt terrible about themselves. And now they realize, no, dude, you don't always want to fuck and you don't always want to fight now, and you're crying at, SPCA commercials. Let's talk about it. But those conversations happen when people are
Right.
brave. It's really hard to do. And I can't tell you, and I've said that, I mean, I just to watch the courage when people engage in these topics and how open and honest and um clear they are with one another and me so we can get to the other side. And by the way, those two are great. And they were having a hard time conceiving. That's happened. They have their second child already.
Wow.
She was not traumatized. She just felt pressured that if he did anything, it was going to lead to intercourse. And that was in her mind. He didn't need that. In fact, he was afraid to because he didn't feel he could perform. So we just went back to making out for a long time.
There's so much.
Yeah.
There's so much. And then, okay. Like you like putting all those issues like on the table. And then when you start to add in the age element, right? And
Yep.
I mean, as we know, like men, well, yeah, we know. I mean, like to not, I mean, they spend the entire first 40 years of their life
Yep.
not being able to stop getting an erection.
Yep.
And then when they get into like, come, hey, I'm sorry, guys, it's coming. It's like,
Yeah.
thank God they jumped on that Viagra train. I think it was the biggest push through of a fucking pharmaceutical that's ever been made. But
Yeah.
like, then they get into that. that space where it's not as easy as it used to be.
Yeah.
And now it's like, I really got to think about it. No, now I'm thinking about it too hard. Now it's not going to happen at all. Like
Yeah.
that is so for them, such a
Yep.
like, dude, it's like
Oh,
a
Ellen, it's so
universal
heartbreaking. I
slap in
have
the
had
face.
grown men in my office crying because they feel like now they're worthless. What else do they have to offer?
Turn
And
that
that's
mail.
our culture. That's our
That's
culture, that we do that to our men. Um, and that needs to change. It just needs to change. And
and plus also we also have this weird thing, and I think it still really kind of exists today. I'm going to keep this to the States. Like we have this almost puritanical, as much as we're trying to overcome, like puritanical attitude towards sex. Sometimes we're like, when people say one of the five, sex languages is king. That's true kink, folks. Okay. Like
yeah,
some people think just talking about sex in general is taboo.
yeah,
Like we have such, and then if you go to like places like Italy, France, like, are you kidding me? They're like, why aren't people talking about it more? Like we
what
look like absolute prudes over here,
here's
and we
the thing,
still
what's interesting, and
slut
here's something that I
shame.
ponder all the time, and I try to find the alignment with it. The two things in our culture that we are the most backwards in compared to any other part of the world is how we deal with dying and sex. So,
Yeah. And you know what? And here's the thing that doesn't make any sense about that, right? Like we've already talked about dying. We all know we're going to die.
yeah.
No one's avoiding it. No one's going to find the magic pill. Okay. And then in regards to sex, I'm going to go out on a limb here and say the majority of us like it.
Mm-hmm.
The majority of us engage in it.
Mm-hmm.
The forms that can take are all over the board. It's
Right.
not just marital sex or relationship sex or like, I
Mm.
mean, there, as we know, like it
Yep.
is a wide spectrum.
Yep.
And even though like, and when you see people being really open about it,
Mm-hmm.
um, because I mean, let's not, I mean, come on. Like, I mean, it's been going on since the beginning of time. And there are still
Yeah.
people who are like, oh, no, 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 no.
Yeah.
No, no. Like no, I don't want to talk about it. And you know what? If you're hey man, if you don't want to explore your sexuality or you don't want to find out your sex language so that you can maximize or optimize your relationship or your intimacy or
Mm-hmm.
even just personal sexual encounters that you have,
Mm-hmm.
that's fine. Okay, that's okay.
Mm-hmm.
But like you don't shame people
No.
that to them it is an integral important part of their life.
And
However, they
here's a
might
piece
be.
about shame, because I'll go back to that same couple.
Yes.
About a year in, she had found some things that he was using on his own because they didn't have a sex life, and
Mhm.
she was having a hard time with it.
Okay.
And he spoke openly about it, and he had now had shame attached to it. Um, but really, her judgment came from the fact that she felt she wasn't meeting his needs.
It
So
wasn't enough.
she took that upset within herself and that insecurity and projected onto his acts, and thus created the shame, right? So we have
That's
to
why
be.
it's so personal.
Mhm.
I mean individual personal. Like you could be in a couple, right? You
Mhm.
could be in a totally formed, long-standing couple that is established, has children, has a retirement account, like who
Yeah.
knows? And they could come to you, and I'm telling you what, that takes you down to your core.
That's exactly what I have
If
seen.
the
And
partner says, well, kind of wish he would do this, or
yeah.
like, I kind of wish she would not do that and do this or consider this. It is such a personal thing
Yeah,
because
and
it
the
feels like such
immediate
a
thing,
judgment, like such a
it's
judgment.
two things. Yeah, immediately the first thing I have to do is establish before anybody says anything. Just because your partner or spouse is going to say, hey, can you not do this, or can you do this, is not a rejection, because immediately people go to, I suck, I'm not meeting your needs, you're rejecting me on a visceral level, right?
Visceral,
Yeah.
very, very,
So
very like
I have to lay that out first, and
poor.
first go, you know, and I say, we're in this room and this is absolutely judgment free. Let's just get the information. And then we'll talk about what it feels like to hear it.
And to know that to have that conversation, it's not a judgment. You're not being criticized. Like everybody has their personal
Yeah.
thing. Um, and to know that if you sat there and were vulnerable and were honest and put it out there, that really the end result is going to be your intimacy being so much better,
Every time. Every time. I
which
watch people
affects
fall in love
everything
like
else
all
in your
over
life.
again. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Hmm.
And but and also too, there I think there's a lot of times where like the woman maybe, because there's an imbalance sometimes in sexual desire or
Hmm.
ideas of what they want to do. And
Yeah.
if the woman's like, I've always wanted to try this, they're almost afraid to say it to the husband because they don't want the husband to be like, holy shit, what the hell is wrong with you? What do you mean you want, like, I mean,
Oh
and it could
yeah.
be anything, right? It
Yeah.
could be anything. It could be bringing somebody else into the
Hmm.
into the sexual relationship once or
Yeah.
twice, who knows? It could be the use of sexual aids. It could be, I mean, there is a website called Love Honey, and I don't know if you've
Hmm.
ever been on it.
I
And it
have.
is the
Yeah, I've heard
most
about it.
sexually progressive,
Hmm.
open, understanding,
Yep.
supportive website to all populations
Yep. I need to go. I haven't,
across the
I've heard
board.
about it. In fact, somebody
They also have some really good
I
shit.
actually came up.
It's great. I
Now,
mean,
it just came up recently.
their
Actually, I'm
mission
trying to
is
think of
like,
where it just came up. Oh, you just said something, and oh, so all those things, right? Bringing in other people, sexual aids, toys, whatever. The common denominator is, and I guess I say this all the time, but it's true. What's the intent about the the choice? So are you bringing someone else in because your partner's not meeting your needs? Red flag. We got to be careful. If you're bringing, yeah, if you're
absolutely.
bringing somebody in because let's try this, it's a good time. I often see that go pretty well. When there's underlying misconstrued intent, I have seen it go very, very badly.
You need
Uh,
boundaries. You need
yeah,
boundaries,
yeah,
parameters, understanding of why we're
yeah.
doing this.
I have
I
had
mean,
I've
I
had
could
people
see
come
how that could
in.
go south
Oh yeah, I've had people come in
quickly.
that already did it, thinking it would help the relationship, and then we got to undo the damage. Yeah, yeah.
Okay, so they figured out that wasn't for them.
No.
Okay, so when we originally start, okay, because I actually
Okay.
proposed this topic because
Sure.
I had a question for you
Yeah.
in regards to, my life, my personal situation. It was something that I struggled with because I found it to be a dichotomy that I didn't understand,
Mhm.
right? So I asked you in the email, how is it that someone in an abusive relationship, right?
Yeah.
Whether you know it's abusive yet, whether you don't know what's going on yet, but you know that something's up or something's wrong. How can someone in an abusive relationship, as the one being abused,
Hmm.
have a good sex life with the person they're with?
Yep. So there's multiple different answers to that, but I was thinking about the simplest one.
Makes me
Okay.
so violently uncomfortable. Just
Okay.
I mean, not to the
Well,
point
you're
where I'm
not
gonna run
alone
out of the
because
room. I'm not gonna run, but I mean, like, I
no,
have
no, but you're
struggled
not
with this.
alone. I can't tell you how many people
Thank you for that.
that will come to me. This one woman, very narcissistic partner, but he was so attentive sexually. He was so, it's the one place he listened to my needs. It was, it was always exciting. You're gonna laugh at how easy the answer is.
What?
Okay. So if you are getting someone off at a high, 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 high level, whose ego is that feeding?
There's
Yeah. It's really that. It really is. It's like, so they can
But
walk around with that notch, you know?
but what okay, so like, but I'm also enjoying it too. Now, like I've
Of course
struggled
you
with
are.
this.
But that's
Okay,
that's why it gets so fucked up because it's the
thank
one
you.
thing they do that you enjoy that meets their need and yours at the same time. Okay? So
It
let's
was kind of twofold.
yeah. So there I can't tell you how many people will say so there's two types of sexual dynamics with narcissists. A lot of times they'll say, "Oh, they're selfish. They just want to get themselves off and they don't think about me and blah blah blah." But it's the same animal, just the flip side, okay? Then you have the narcissists that are really good at sex because they get turned on by turning the other person on. It's still not about you. It's about how they feel about your reaction.
But see, this is why I struggled, right? Like, and this was all in hindsight.
Yeah,
This was not like at the time. It was
sure.
in hindsight because I was kind of like, because I'll be completely honest. I'm a sexual person. Like I have a high
Mhm,
sex drive. I know I do.
mhm.
Um, but I thought back and I was like, why would I enjoy this? I'm like, why? I'm like,
Oh, no,
was
no,
I
no,
just
no.
kind of like some kind of like sexual deviant that
Deviant,
didn't
right?
mind
No.
that I was having sex with this person, that the very next day it was going to be Groundhog Day and it was going to be this isn't good enough and this isn't good enough and what's wrong with you and I
Yeah,
knew it was coming,
yeah.
right? I knew it was coming. And I would literally think to myself, okay, Ellen, what the fuck is wrong with you? Like,
Oh,
you
yeah.
know what is wrong with you? Like, why are
So
you even engaging? Like, what?
here's the other piece too, because there's many levels to this. So the first piece is, you got one, two types of personalities. The one that gets off on getting the person off, which is can be a very selfless thing, but not for the narcissist. It's really just objectification. It's like, okay, there's that.
Makes sense.
And I'm not saying you guys didn't have moments that were you can have reciprocal moments. I'm just giving you kind of the black and white of it. Okay.
It was sexual, it wasn't intimate. Can I say that?
Okay. Well, there you go. And that's often what I hear.
I could
Um,
literally cry right now.
oh,
I could.
cry because tell me why.
Because it's such a shame. I mean, in a way,
Yeah.
it's like, no, it really is. It's such a shame because I wanted it to be intimate. I mean, and not necessarily with him. Like
Yeah.
I know what I'm capable of and I know what I have. And it's like, I said this to my friend the other day. I said, I kind of feel like I've been cheated. I kind of cheated myself.
Yeah. But you got to realize, oh, and that was
So
the
I
only,
struggled with that because I was
yeah.
like, Christ, I'm like completely like participating in this and was for years. And I was like, then I just must not know myself because I'm, you know, fully sexually involved, but I'm married to the guy and everything, but he's absolutely fucking horrible to me. So like I couldn't reconcile it. And so when you answered it in that way, because you're so good at articulating things and normalizing them so you don't feel like you're an absolute
Yeah.
lunatic.
No, you're not.
You know what? I
No.
struggle with that for years. I did. I was
Oh,
like,
hell.
I just must be an absolute
No.
freak. Like
No.
that's how I felt. I did. I really did.
It's another form of control because he knows he's good at it. And it's the one thing that he can control you with. There was nothing else that was enjoyable. And he controlled you
Yeah,
with that too.
yeah, there
And
really wasn't.
yeah, and I think it's one of the most evil pieces. I almost think it's more evil, that type of narcissist, than the ones that just kind of like get off and get up and walk away. Because there's an objectification and a grossness about it, that you are being used as a look what I can do.
Yeah, I guess that was part of it, right? I mean, it's not like a narcissistic, personality disordered person only keeps up that in, 7 out of 8 situations and then turns into someone
No,
else and not. So it was hard because like, I questioned myself. I did.
Because
I was like, wow, there must be something wrong with me
no,
because I'm actually, but then there was also times I was maybe I'm enjoying this because I'm kind of like blocking it out because, everybody has needs. I mean, everyone has like, the need for like touch or even just, desire or whatever. And so I was like, well, maybe I'm just like, blocking out like who it is.
Helen, it was
And
the
just
only breadcrumb he was giving to you. I mean, and on top of it, it was a meal. It wasn't a breadcrumb. You know what I'm saying? You
mm,
know?
and the thing is, in those types of situations, because it happens, you'll be like, wow, that was really great, right? Like that was really great. So tomorrow's going to be a good day
Right.
because it wasn't like connection. Like I will
Yeah.
say right now, I will. And I firmly believe in being honest about this because so many people, I don't know, I just find it sad. In all the times that I had sex with my ex-husband, which, we're talking about a very long span of time.
Yeah.
From the time I was 21 until the time I was 44,
Okay.
45, never looked me in the face.
Never.
Nope.
Ouch. Yeah.
So the first time that happened with me with somebody else, like post
Oh, you
relationship
must
with
have
him,
lost your shit. Holy moly.
it just felt like
Yeah.
so like not intrusive, but it felt like I couldn't keep eye contact.
Yeah. Yeah. The things
And
we,
this is an important, but see, for me, this is such an important topic
yeah.
because, or maybe just because I value sex, I value intimacy, I mean, hey, I value sex in a number of different ways.
Hmm.
Okay. And we all do it for different reasons. It could be love, it could be lust, it could be desire, it could be loneliness, it could be boredom.
A zillion
Ha,
different things. Yeah.
a zillion different things.
Yeah.
But like, I did that hit me one time like when I was involved with somebody like after this and I was like, I mean, like I
Yeah.
remember just afterwards being like, I've never been looked in the face.
Mm.
Never been looked in the face. And dude, fucking look at this face. Who doesn't want
Yeah.
to look at this face? I have eyes like an ocean. I mean, come on. No, but I mean, like, I really it struck me like so hard. I was like,
Yeah.
that's weird. Right. And so then you start to feel like you're just like a vessel.
So let me share something with you that will even put that in perspective more. Okay.
Okay.
Working with a woman who has a husband who isn't a
Mm,
full narcissist, but he's right on the cusp.
lucky
But
her.
he is open to growth. And he does talk about the fact that deep down inside, even though he's walking around like this, he's super insecure, right?
Aren't they always?
But with someone who's willing, yes, they are, but someone who's willing to admit it and then also be someone who won't look his wife in the face when they're having sex.
Is there fear not looking in the face? Like it could it be like a number of different things?
It's
Like,
a number of different things. So,
I mean, you can look in my face to yell at me and fight with me. No problem with that.
right. But when sex is involved and some people, that is a reflection of the fact I think I'd be more concerned if he I wouldn't even say concerned. I mean, it hurts my heart for you that he was never present. Um, but I'm glad he didn't take the act all the way to looking you in the eyes and just pretending. At least that was honest. He couldn't look at you because there is a part of him that is so profoundly insecure that to see him in that level of intimacy and that level of vulnerability and rawness, he couldn't do it. Couldn't do it.
But you know how that may, I mean, like obviously you know how that would make somebody
How that
feel.
translates? How that translates is terrible. Yeah. You don't want to look at me. Oh, it's terrible, boy. And then to get people to talk about why they won't, um, that's a really cool thing. But not everybody's going to talk about why they won't. This one
Well,
guy
I
we're
don't
working
think
with,
some
he's like,
people know why they won't. I don't think I
they don't.
mean, I don't think people would know.
So this guy that I'm talking about, really interesting. You know what he said? She said,
Hmm.
"Why won't you look at me? Why won't you look at me?" And he said, "If I look at you, I have to look at you looking at me, and I'm gross."
This is why this topic is so important.
Yeah.
That's so sad.
Sad.
I mean, like, talk about a real, like, you're gross.
And he felt that way. And he didn't say it to her. He's the one that said that. And I have a lot of hope for this guy. And he's not gross. But he's got this image in
Of
his
course,
head.
he's not gross.
He needs to have this perfect body. And he doesn't. That's just not how he's built.
There's no perfect for anybody. I mean, come on. Like, who, so what drives me so crazy when we hear these things, like, find a place where you can get happy with yourself. Okay. What do you mean by perfect body? I mean, like, oh my God, have we not
Yeah.
gone over this? I mean, with okay, get to the point where you feel good about yourself. You know what? And your idea of perfect is for you. And it's not going to be somebody else's. And who gives a shit?
Right.
Like you could be when I was talking to Mary Lou today, and this was a great comment. It was a great comment. Like when we were talking about, like, I don't know what's going on with my in here, but like we were talking about about like like the sex languages and people and how they really like you really get an idea of someone of like how they have sex or blah blah blah. Blah. And we were talking about college and stuff. And
Yeah.
she's like, did you ever? Because Mary Lou's gorgeous, and she will listen to this at some point in time. Mary Lou's gorgeous, and she was like, did you ever like when you were in college? She's like, did you ever hook up with like super hot guy? And you were like, okay, like this is exciting. She's like, and then it absolutely wasn't what you thought, and you were like, dude, you're super good looking. Like I thought you had more to bring to the table. Like, what's about? I assumed because you're the guy that all the girls talk about that you're like Casanova, Romeo, fucking, all the romantic people, Errol Flynn rolled into one. And the guy's like, I don't know what I'm doing. Yeah, never had to work that hard. So
Never
what?
had to work that hard.
Never
Yeah.
had to work that hard, right? And it was such a funny,
That's
funny
funny.
comment because it's a
Did
little
you ever
true,
see?
little
Did
true.
you had to see Bridesmaids? You saw Bridesmaids,
Oh
right?
my God, I love that movie.
Love it. So what I love is the most advanced and um what I the one who had the most sexual game was Melissa McCarthy. Right?
He's like, I'm a millionaire. I own
Yeah.
like 4 houses. I've got
Yeah.
top security clearance. But like, oh my God, seriously? And that's just another part of it. One of my favorite lines in that movie is when they're on the plane going to Vegas.
Mm-hmm.
And the blonde who used to be in Reno 911, and I
Uh-huh.
can't think of her name right now. And the girl who was like the other one who then ended up being in the office, right? And they ended up like having a ton of drinks. And the blonde's like, I'm no good, I'm awful. And the other girl's like, you smell like pine needles and you have a face like sunshine. Like you're amazing. Like it's how we look at ourselves and how we talk to ourselves. And again, I really the sexual thing is it's such a root of it. I
Yeah.
mean, it like you said, like performance,
Yeah.
not perform. I mean, everyone is so worried. Like, do I look like a porn star? Like, am I you know,
Yeah.
we'll watch some stand-up. I watched some stand-up the other night, about, and it was a rash of comedians just giving like, their 30-second, 40-second things about like just funny sexual stuff.
Yeah.
This one British guy, no idea who he is. He's blonde, funny as hell. And he was like, what is with these young kids who are like 16, 17, 18 years old?
Mhm.
They're digital natives. They've been on computers since the day they were fucking born.
Yep.
They've all watched way more porn than they should have by
Oh,
now.
yeah.
And then they're like about to like have sex for the first time. And some of them are filming it. Like, I'm going to lose my virginity and I'm going to film it. And like, and it's normally guys. And like, it lasts like 17 seconds, but they
Mhm.
think they're going to be like Ron Jeremy because they have a completely unrealistic. Ron Jeremy is a porn star,
Yeah, just
people.
we
You
just
can you can Google him. He's from the 80s.
yeah.
Like if they have an unrealistic view, and then they put all this pressure on themselves,
Yeah.
right? To have this make it amazing for them and amazing for her and blah blah. Dude,
Well,
whose first time?
why do you think our young people are having sex at such later ages? They are.
God, I hope they keep waiting. Like,
And the sexual activity, our birth rate is down. I mean, a lot of younger folks, it's changing more, but a lot of the 20 somethings were identifying as asexual, and and all of this.
they're going
How do you?
boy sober. Boy
Yep.
sober is a new
Yep.
term, right?
Mhm.
Um, they just they're not in a place where they're like, I just don't want to deal with this.
Well, they haven't
I don't
even
want
met
to deal with
half of the people face to face. They haven't even done
it.
that.
No, no,
You
no.
know.
And
Yeah.
when we were in college and the 90s, the best
The
decade.
90s were the best.
By the way, I'm sorry, you can't argue.
You know
80s,
what?
80s and
Even
90s.
my
80s
kids
and
think the
90s.
90s was the best.
Because they were.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's not
Because
like
they
we're
were.
like, yeah, mom and dad, the 50s were the greatest. No, no. But our
No,
kids are like, you're right, the 90s were the best. Yeah.
I'm sorry. 86 to 94.
Hmm.
Nothing beats it. That's our whole spread between high school and college. And you can't convince me otherwise. But like it was great. And like, and even though, yeah, Katie, did we all fuck around? Yeah, we all fucked around. Okay. But like, it wasn't, nothing was on Instagram and nothing was on YouTube and nobody had a phone and nobody even knew about all this other
Oh,
shit that could go on.
yeah, it's still your friends that hold the memories and like, remember when I kept watching when you made out with that guy? That kind of stuff.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, seriously, or like I've talked about before, and like, where did you go to college? Oh, wait, you meandered. You
I
meandered.
meandered. Yeah, I started college in California. I did that for a while. And then when I moved back here, I went to Buff State for a little while. But so when I was in college in California, I wasn't out. And I did have a boyfriend and stuff at the time, but I knew. So that's when I
Right.
was starting to kind of like try to meet women on the down low. But by the time I moved out here to go to college, I was in a committed relationship with my first girlfriend. So I wasn't testing waters really.
But I mean,
That came
it
later.
was it was a completely different feel. It
It's
was a
different.
different feel. These kids have so much goddamn pressure on them.
Yeah.
I mean, I literally, if I could abolish cell phones, like if we could do prohibition for cell phones, like we did for alcohol back in like 1919, I
Yeah.
would do it. I don't feel
There's
like it's helping
colleges that are
anybody.
starting to ban them.
They should.
Yeah, they are.
They're wrecking mental health. Nobody has a realistic vision of anything.
Yeah.
Um, I mean, granted, I got all of the articles that I've used so far off of fucking internet, but I mean,
Yeah.
like,
Yeah, but
they're
everything in moderation, right? I mean, I know
uh,
that sounds just kind of cliche, but
true,
it's true.
true.
And so I do before because I'm running into
Because we're gonna
dinner
wrap
time.
up. Yeah,
But
but I do
I
think we
think
should
we need to
continue.
talk a little bit more about um this concept, the two faces of narcissists in bed. Ooh, that's a ooh.
Hi, babe. My son's going to play basketball. Love you.
Bye. So the two faces of
Cutest
it,
thing
because
in the world.
there's really two.
Okay.
But they both serve the same need, but there's two. And then I think we should talk about how it's used to control and what happens with So you have dopamine sensory deprivation when you're in abusive relationships. And so sex will naturally release dopamine,
Okay.
endorphins, and everything else. So if you're
Right.
lacking in that already, and then they're using that on top of it, that's a whole nother thing we should talk.
Yeah, we should. I think, because I think a lot of people like me not understanding why, right? Like, I mean, really not understanding and to this day being like, shit, um, what's wrong with me? And I think there's a lot of people out there that feel that way. And these are a lot of people that are still in these relationships that are like, well, hell, like we had sex last night and it was great. And now I'm back to it. Like, and you question yourself, right? You question your judgment. You question everything about yourself.
And there's another facet too. I mean, if the sex was the sex always good with you guys from day one? Or was it a progressive? So you connected that way well. It was always good. So going back to the mind, body, spirit, there was a connection there that worked really well. The other stuff didn't work. And so then when you start the mind and body and the negativity and the dysfunction starts to infiltrate, then it starts to taint the things that do work too. So flip it, so if you get into a relationship and intellectually you're totally matched, but emotionally it's abusive and sexually it's insecure, the mind connection will become infiltrated as well, because those other two things are unhealthy. My cat agrees.
That's a lot. I
So we should talk more about that, I think.
think
I
we
think
need to
so.
make some
Let's do a
notes.
part two. And I want to tell you something, my final thought. My dear, dear friend, there is nothing wrong with you. There's nothing wrong with you, Ellen. Nothing. And you are not alone. You are not alone. And you have nothing to be ashamed of. You really don't.
Good to hear. I was there for a while.
Nope. Nope. And you are a healthy sexual being and you have wonderful qualities, and all of your wonderful qualities were taken advantage of. All of them. He took advantage of all of them. He took all the beautiful parts of you and twisted them and turned them and intentionally tried to make you question them. That's what they do.
Wow. Mm, thank you. I appreciate that.
It's true.
All right. I think
Okay.
we're good.
We're good. All right. We'll take a part
Bye.
two next week.
We'll do a part two.
Bye, my friend.
Bye.